coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast, the 15th already of the season. I am Matt H, and with me I'm glad to welcome back Matt V. Hello Matt.
Hello. Sorry I couldn't be here last week, but looks like Arsenal just as successful in my absence.
Yeah, it's the 15th one of these, and only the first one really has been sort of a disappointment in terms of, well, I can't speak for the content, but in terms of the result that we had to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because obviously we had the Southampton loss in the EFL thing last week, but I think we're slightly more relaxed about that. But the team have bounced back well, even if they were bothered by that defeat. It doesn't seem to have shown it. So, yeah, so let's get on with it then. So, week ago, Arsenal started a very good week by playing Basel in the last of the Champions League games. And we'd sort of almost written this off in the pod I did with Pete last week. We're not going to finish top of the group. Let's just see how it goes. Good to keep the momentum going, that kind of thing. Well, we were happily very wrong about that, because not only did Arsenal get a very nice 4-1 win with a lot of changes made to the team, but PSG didn't get a win at home to Ludogorets, and indeed maybe quite lucky to get a draw. So there we go. Matt, thoughts on that particular game?
Yeah, it was a strange one. He did make changes, but it was still a pretty strong team. Still had Sanchez and Ozil, so I think he probably wanted to be in a position where if we sort of guaranteed ourselves the win and then take it from there, see what happened in Paris. And in starting that strong team and playing so well from the offset, it meant that as soon as Paris Saint-Germain did slip up, we were there to capitalise immediately. We'll come on to the draw, but in terms of the game itself, I thought we were really impressive. Was it the start of December? Is that where it all turned?
Yeah, well, could well be, yeah.
It was just so good from the start. We hadn't seen it in a while, but sort of that aggressive tempo, high intensity, and then when we got the chances, we took them, and we just killed the game pretty early on, really, and then comfortably saw it out from there.
Yeah, I mean, 4-0 up by the 53rd minute after Lucas's excellent hat-trick, I thought, really well taken. I mean, right, they weren't spectacular, but they were well-taken goals, very much so. I mean, just touching briefly on the team news, we saw Mesut and Alexis start, and I think some people were a little surprised that they both started in a game which perhaps many of us, maybe that's our fault, it's sort of mentally written off to some degree. Yeah. They did come off with sort of 20 minutes to go. Obviously it worked out being exactly the right decision, but were you surprised to see both of them starting?
I was, actually. In particular, Sanchez. But I think it was a case of he always probably planned to take them off pretty early on once the win was secured. I think if we'd have played Giroud or someone else up front, I think we probably still would have had enough to win, but it was a statement of intent from the start, I guess. And yeah, all paid off well in the end.
It did. I mean, it's something we touched on last week, and I know we've touched on previous pods as well. That I mean, this wasn't a second team. It wasn't quite a first team, though. It was sort of team and a half, if you like. I mean, Ospina is worth a mention, I think, for a couple of excellent saves. And I don't remember him having a terrible game for some time now. Obviously, he's had his moments in the past, but when he plays, he seems to take the opportunities very well when they present themselves. I'm probably missing some horrible, huge mistake that he's made recently, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, most of the praise has to go to Lucas. A hat trick when you haven't been playing very often. He really looked pretty. That's what we want, really, isn't it? I mean, is he challenging Giroud now for places on the bench? Assuming we stick with Sanchez, where we've become used to him at the front, at the top, if you like.
Yeah. I think so, for sure. But also, I think the hat-trick came when he was playing off the wing, didn't it? So, obviously, Walcott, you think, has sort of shored up one of the places on the wing. But the other one, Iwobi's not been in the best of form. Oxlade-Chamberlain's certainly improving, but you wouldn't say it's his position yet. So I'd say Perez certainly has a chance of starting on the wing, especially if he keeps being as clinical as that.
Yeah, I suppose I was thinking of, yes, you're right. I was thinking of Lucas as some kind of direct replacement for, not a replacement for Sanchez, but, changing the system a bit to fit him in. So he's a bit more like Giroud than perhaps Sanchez. But of course, yes, it's actually more of a, well, again, it's one of these nice problems to have about where you fit everyone into a particular system. I suppose the follow on from that then is, are we going to see Lucas starting any games soon where there aren't wholesale changes to the team? So however we describe them, are we going to see him at some point soon giving Sanchez a break, or giving, as you say, not giving Sanchez a break necessarily, but taking one of those roles from the start? I suppose what I'm getting at is he going to start a Premier League game at any time soon?
It's probably, if he is, it's probably the time of year where it will happen. Lots of games coming up very quickly. I think after Christmas you have the ones on New Year's Day and then again the 3rd of December. And Sanchez obviously can't play all of those, especially because a couple of weeks ago we were wondering whether he was fully fit or not.
Whether he can, or whether we think he can doesn't mean he can, of course. But hopefully somebody will, lock him in his house or something. I mean, that's maybe the only way we can stop him.
Probably.
Worth mentioning also, of course, for a team that had a number of changes. The number of passes, for example, for the second goal, I think it was 20 something. It might even have been more than that. Just, nice that players who perhaps don't play together quite as regularly as the main guys, as it were, can just, have that ethos. They can just knock it round. It all looks very comfortable, and then wait for that moment and bang, in goes someone to finish off the move.
Yeah, they were all really, really good goals. Gibbs in particular, I thought was great. Came in for Monreal. I think he got 3 assists.
Yes, I think it was, wasn't it?
Which is pretty impressive for a left back. And that's another position where we seem to have really strong competition for places.
Yeah, the other person I wanted to mention, yes, it's a nice thing with competition all over the pitch. Obviously, Holding was playing. Nice to see him playing again, and he, I think he may have one minor slip, but I think he generally did okay. Xhaka, of course, this is someone I think who's going to come up in conversation and perhaps a lot more over the next few weeks. It'll be interesting to see. If he's going to make the central midfield sort of post his own, as it were. Obviously, he was playing on Saturday as well, but we'll come to that later on. His stats were very impressive. I don't have them in front of me at the moment, but I know that he was very impressive in terms of his pass completion rate. I know it's not all about stats, but it's a very handy thing to see. And I'm just wondering if he does give us... He's obviously not Cazorla-like, because they're different types of players, but it's an interesting option that we can go perhaps slightly more in that direction, given that Cazorla is, out for the foreseeable future, and we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, start of the season he was benched probably more than most were expecting. Wenger probably knows more about how he's settling in than all of us, so I'm sure there was a reason for that, and he looks to certainly be benefiting from that now, starting regularly. He doesn't have great pace, doesn't need to take people on really, just keeps it very simple, always seems to have a lot of time on the ball. And I think we need that person in midfield, especially as you said in Cazorla's absence, just to keep things ticking over.
Ticking over, exactly. I've found the stats now. It was 104 out of 111 passes were successful. The unsuccessful ones, 2 or 3 of those 7 were sort of obviously long cross-field attempts. It was Steven Gerrard type, Hollywood passes that didn't quite find their mark. But all his passes are in the middle third of the pitch pretty much. And that's exactly what we're talking about, that kind of controlling aspect. You're not going to get perhaps the flair that you might get with Cazorla or something like that. But steady and secure, which is what we're after.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with who he's playing with in defensive midfield. I think Coquelin's started to become a lot more reliable, I'd say. He doesn't seem to be diving in as much. Seems to be a lot more mature, especially when he's been on a yellow card. And with Coquelin, he's been the one that started a lot of our high pressing, and that's given Xhaka the time really. Because Coquelin has many strengths. You'd probably say passing and distribution wasn't one of them.
Yes, I think that's fair enough. With
Xhaka, I think they complement them each other very well.
Okay, well, yes, that's a nice way to end that particular little bit of the Arsenal performance, as it were, because it wasn't all about, of course, what was going on in Switzerland. It was also what was going on in Paris, as we've alluded to. Now, I think we deserve some credit for pointing out previously that Ludogorets are not terrible. I think we'd said that. I mean, even though we obviously had a big win against them in the away leg or the away game, obviously we were somewhat fortunate to come out with anything there, let alone the 3 points. We also thought they looked lively and looked useful and what have you. And, well, they obviously gave PSG some problems. But, I mean, there's one name that springs to mind for me about PSG, and it's Cavani. Because, obviously, if he'd put away some more chances at some point throughout the group stage, really, we'd be probably looking at second place in the group. Apparently, I only saw some highlights, but the PSG team were certainly getting the bird from their supporters, and that must have been a pretty disappointing outcome for them to not beat Ludogorets home and indeed only just get a draw.
Yeah, I mean, to have it in your hands going in to the last match, and with what on paper is probably the easiest match of the group, I think everybody thought the group was probably over. But Ludogorets, I know they did make the Europa League. I assume that's probably an incentive for them. They still had a lot to play for. And yeah, you mentioned about Cavani. It's just really strange, really, to say it about a striker, but his one flaw is his finishing, which is not what you want from your striker, obviously.
No, that's sounding a bit kind of, dare I say it, Francis Jeffers like in terms of not fox in the box, which never really came off for him.
Yeah, it's just, his movement's great. Gets into so many good positions, and his team sort of always look for him, so he gets loads of chances a game, but just not very clinical at all.
No, and I'm just looking, actually, he cost, according to Wikipedia, so, take that with a pinch of salt perhaps, but the fee for him 3 years ago was believed to be around 64 million euros, which is, I mean, I know money these days for those big clubs doesn't really matter, but it's just a staggering amount for someone who doesn't seem to, at least outside the domestic arena, have that kind of finishing ability. And we have to be careful about criticising someone because we'll meet him down the line and he'll score 2 hat-tricks or something.
Sure.
But for what we've seen this season so far, if he'd taken the chances against us, let alone against other teams in other matches, we could be looking at second place. Now, we didn't finish second place. We finished top of the group, and I think we're very pleased about that idea of, that's a real confidence boost and all the rest of it. First time we've done it, I think, for 6 years. First time we've been unbeaten in the group stage for a while as well, I believe. But we're doing this on Monday afternoon, and the draw for the Champions League round has been made. And as we have joked about for some weeks, where we'd said if we finish top of the group, we'll get Madrid or Munich, and so it's proved. Bayern Munich out of the hat, or the warm balls, or whatever they do at UEFA. Those games are obviously not going to be played for a couple of months, so we'll come back to those when they're imminent. But any thoughts at this very early stage about Munich? They're not looking quite as good this season domestically, again, as they have in previous years.
No, pretty unbelievable. We've managed to find them once again. I reckon if we played them sooner, sort of in the next couple of weeks, I reckon we probably have a very good chance. Our form's in good shape, players all looking good, and Munich, as you said, have slipped up a few times recently. Whether that is the case in February, who knows? I think it's going to be a case of the first leg away from home, just staying in it, really, try and get an away goal, give ourselves a chance when we come back to the Emirates. Hopefully, playing at home second leg means the chance of a heroic failure sort of diminishes, and going out on away goals is less likely.
That's an interesting thought. Yes, that would be nice. Of course, they will also have had a winter break to rest all their players, because it goes on for ages as well in Germany, I seem to remember. Whereas, of course, we play, as you alluded to, a million games between now and then. But yeah, I think that's an interesting point. If we were able to play them in the next week or something, that would be, confidence would be quite different, I think, between the two camps. But we'll leave it for now, but we'll see how it goes in a few months or weeks. So they're played over February and March. I don't know the exact dates yet, but we will find those before too long.
No, even if we'd come second in the group, PSG PSG drew Barcelona, so
Oh, there we go.
It was a lose-lose.
Yes, that's a nice way to finish it. Yes, yes. I'm not sure. I think of those two, I probably prefer Munich.
Yeah.
Although Barcelona also aren't having a stellar season by their very high standards, but they look pretty good in Europe. So, we've avoided Barcelona. Let's look on the bright side of things. Okay, so obviously with the West Ham game before Basel, we scored 9 goals in 2 games. So then we had our visitors from Mordor arriving on Saturday as Stoke came to the Emirates, and despite a unpleasant start where they scored a penalty, which we'll come on to about whether it was a penalty or not, I'm sure in a moment. Arsenal did the business, 3 goals and a new coffee machine for Theo Walcott, which obviously he will be delighted about. Did you hear this story?
No, what's
you haven't heard this? At some point previously in the season, there was an interview where he let slip that his wife had said if he got 10 goals this season, I think I've got this right, that she would buy him a new coffee machine for Christmas, one of those fancy ones of some description. So he's spoilt that surprise already, because she could have kept that quiet. I'm sure footballers don't get much surprise. So obviously now, perhaps at this very moment, Theo is somewhere in the home counties enjoying a nice coffee, or maybe he has to wait till Christmas. I don't know, but I wonder if that was the first thing that went through his mind when he scored.
I wish someone had worked out he had this coffee addiction 12 years ago. We could have offered him all sorts.
Under the table kind of coffee stuff. Yeah. Well, he's got his new. Well, if he hasn't now, he will be very soon getting his nice new coffee machine from Mrs. Walcott. But let's focus on the game first of all. So the team news was pretty much as expected. The standard kind of 11, Xhaka starting, of course, and Oxlade-Chamberlain starting. Although after only 25 minutes, I think, Mustafi had to go off with what everyone seems to be very relaxed about, some kind of sort of small hamstring injury that apparently he's going to be back in a few weeks. Yeah. Or not very long in theory, but again, it's an Arsenal injury, so we'll see how that works. And Bellerin was able to come on and have some impact. But first of all, of course, it was the penalty. Did you have a thought on the Stoke penalty?
I think Xhaka was sort of penalised for just being taller. I mean, it was clumsy. There was probably no need to follow through like that. Not sure really if it was a penalty myself.
I mean, I don't like Stoke. I can't stand them. But so I'm particularly biased. I'm unbiased anyway, but particularly biased on this occasion. I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was turning, and it's ironic in a way that it's him and everyone has these concerns about his potential for getting yellow cards. On that occasion, I've seen it from a couple of angles. I think he just had his arm up and just caught the guy, and down he went. But it's happened. We've moved on. It did seem like a fairly easy one to go down on, but for the Stoke player. But so Stoke took the lead, which is the worry. But then we obviously came back with a vengeance, which was nice goals for Mesut Ozil, Theo Walcott, and Alex Iwobi, of course. Yeah.
Quickly on the penalty. Never mind saving a penalty. Has Cech ever even dived the right way for a penalty?
I haven't. I don't know is the short answer to that. The longer answer is I don't recall him being particularly good or particularly bad at penalties, but maybe he is bad and I just haven't noticed.
He just seems to sort of nonchalantly launch himself the same way every time, quite early on. I remember I read something where David Seaman was interviewed about how he used to do save penalties, and he said he was always taught to wait until, not dive early, but wait until he'd seen which way the ball was going. I think the theory behind that was that if the ball's going in the corner, however early you dive, you're not going to get there. Mm-hmm. But if you at least dive in the right direction, you have a chance of saving it if it's not fully in the corner. But Cech does dive very early and almost all the time completely the wrong way.
Well, and of course we've had, I seem to recall reading somewhere, because that's an interesting factor. We've conceded more penalties in this season than we've conceded in the previous 2 put together or something. Yeah. So if he's really, I'm going to watch out for this now. If he's not putting in his best efforts, well, not his best. If it isn't his forte, penalties, then we need to watch out for that if we're going to keep giving them away, rightly or wrongly.
I'm sure he's just saving them for the penalty shootout in the Champions League final.
That'll be it, obviously.
It would be nice if he could chuck in a save every now and then, or just diving in the direction of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite. I mean, I certainly always felt much more secure. Well, I haven't noticed it with Czech, although I will be looking now. But I always felt secure with Lehmann in goal, even if he was mental. And I don't know if his record was any better, but he certainly gave. I certainly felt we had a good chance when he was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone who's got that kind of, perhaps aura's overstating it, but someone who you can feel some confidence in is good. I mean, obviously Czech, it seems, is pretty damn good in the normal run of play. But yeah, that's an interesting one. If he's not doing so well in penalties, I might even investigate that. I might see if there's somebody somewhere will have worked out.
Oh yeah,
goalkeeper ratio. So you never know. I might get into that if I've got some time later on. After the penalty went in for Stoke, though, of course, we were back level by half time, thanks to Theo and his new coffee machine winning goal to tie things up at half time. And then shortly into the second half, a good assist from Oxlade-Chamberlain to Ozil to score. I mean, he does score with his head, but he doesn't score millions with his head, does he? So that was a nice way to take the lead.
It was, and it was sort of an Ozil-esque pass from Oxlade-Chamberlain to play him through. Sort of expect Ozil to always take his time, probably bring the ball down and take it from there. But it was a really good finish. They were all good goals, really. I think Walcott's goal was crucial to score that before half-time. Probably had an effect on both teams. Bellerin set that one up. He looked really sharp when he came on, and that's sort of changed.
I wonder if Bellerin is a little like Sanchez, sort of Sanchez light, as it were, in terms of his determination to be playing. Maybe it was just letting him off the leash, as it were. I mean, you assume there was some remaining niggle if he wasn't starting, but fairly quickly it seemed, right, on you go. I don't know if there was much discussion about him replacing Mustafi, but if he's on the bench, they obviously think he's ready to go. So stick him on, and obviously, he came back with, not back with a bang necessarily, but back with an assist, which is as good as we can hope for. I mean, looking at the options on the bench, Gibbs was the only other sort of defender really. So perhaps there was a slight Hobson's choice about it, but great to have him back, and he didn't seem to be showing any ill effects. No,
and we'll come on to it, but obviously a very important week for us, and having him back. Obviously, I'm not going to criticise Gabriel too. I think he's done very well in an unknown position to him.
Absolutely.
But obviously it's an upgrade to have Bellerin back.
It is, and it also put us top of the league, temporarily at least, because yesterday Chelsea ground out a 1-0 over West Brom. I was going to say West Ham then, West Brom. West Ham, how did West Ham manage to draw at Liverpool after we sort of took them apart last week?
I think it was a case of both teams being unable to defend.
Well, that's whereas we managed that last week, but Liverpool couldn't quite. I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but obviously we have seen some of our potential Championship rivals, not Chelsea, but the others, drop points again. And we've put ourselves in a pretty decent league position, but we'll come on to that in a second. My random thing was, apart from beating Stoke, which is always fun, and going top of the league, it was like, which three clubs would I want from the realistic contenders? Yeah. So not including the big names, not even including Spurs, I'm afraid. Which three teams would I want to go down for whatever irrational reasons? And two of mine are West Ham and Stoke, because I can't stand either of them. I'm not really sure what my third one is. I don't sort of have that strong feelings about other teams that aren't in the top sort of 5 or 6. Yeah. Do you have any particular rational or indeed irrational hatreds of teams?
No. Stoke definitely going down. I don't know, actually.
Sorry, I've thrown that one. I've surprised you with that one. It was just something that occurred to me earlier. Who would I like to see go down? And it probably helps. In Stoke's case, it's probably not going to happen. West Ham, it looks like it's not impossible. But
I would love West Ham to be relegated with their new stadium.
That makes it even more. I mean, I've disliked them for some time, but I think there's quite a few people now joining in that particular club, given the way the stadium thing.
Definitely.
Paying £2.50 a week or whatever for their stadium. So.
It would amuse me if Leicester got relegated to little things.
That's fair enough, I suppose. That's fair enough. Although nice link, because we can mention Leicester in a moment, because as you say, we have a big week coming up. It's a two league game week. Yeah. So tomorrow night we are away at Everton, and then on Sunday we are away at Man City. Now,
Oof.
Let's quickly go through Everton first. Everton on a pretty dire run of form at the moment. Having started the season not badly at all, they're really falling apart. Might be overstating it, but they're really not getting much together. They lost at Watford at the weekend. We should feel reasonably confident about this one, shouldn't we?
We should. Traditionally, you'd look at it as one of our hardest away games, especially if it's within 5 days of City away. But we played their away last year and we got a 2-0 win, I think. We played really well. They're obviously not in good form at all. This is probably a very good time to play them. Lukaku found some form against Watford, scored twice. Not what we want really, but defensively they look very open. And Bolassi's obviously now injured long term. Barkley doesn't seem to be playing. So I think it is a case of when Lukaku's not in form, they're going to all struggle, really. They have a real reliance on him. So I think this is a game we can be looking to win. And I think we probably do need to win, considering Chelsea pulling away and then obviously the game to come at the weekend.
Yeah, so we'll... yeah, I mean, there's not too much we can say at the moment. We're assuming the team news will be be able to select from a fairly strong squad because we're not aware of, apart from Mustafi, of any other new injury problems. So fingers crossed it will be a pretty good team from that respect. So yeah, I was thinking about this earlier. I think a couple of weeks ago I'd have been concerned about us getting a decent return from this little trip to the northwest over these sort of 5 days. But I'd hope for at least 4 points out of these two. The second game of which is Man City away. Now, it seems a little gung-ho to be talking about that when I certainly at the start of the season I tipped Man City to win the league in something we did for By the Minute. But they're not having they're not having things their own way. Let's put it that way. I mean, Saturday against Leicester they were just torn apart. 3-0 down after what seemed like no time at all. And I mean, it was 4-2 in the end, but I think they were lucky to get the 2, to say the least. This is a game that we've done okay with in the past away at City. Is this can we really be confident about expecting 3 points?
I mean, if it's a good time to play Everton, it's a great time to play City. Aguero and Fernandinho suspended.
Of course, yes.
They're in an interesting run of form. Their start against Leicester was nothing short of shambolic, really. Their defence just looks a mess, really. And their insistence on sort of passing it around the back, despite being pressed, you just always feel that they're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think with Sanchez leading the line, with him putting that pressure on, backed up with our wingers, I think we can really get at them even when we don't have the ball, because it's not in City's nature. Even if they are struggling to sort of change tactics, they will try and persevere with passing it. So I think I'd definitely take 4 points over the 2 games, but I think we have good reason, especially if we get a result against Everton, to go into the City game believing we can win it.
Yeah, I think so. They are. How are they? Sorry, I was looking at their fixture before. They're at home to Watford on Wednesday. So that would probably, you'd think, get them sort of back in the saddle with all due respect to Watford. But yeah, I'd forgotten to mention Aguero missing, of course, and that's a huge advantage for us potentially. And if Sanchez is on form, yeah, he can scare the bejesus out of John Stones. Mind you, John Stones started to look like a slightly broken man by the end of that game on Saturday anyway. Yeah, I mean, City have lost a couple of... They've obviously lost to Leicester. They lost to Chelsea, of course, in their league game as well previously. I think it's the first time Pep's lost 2 league games in a row, like forever or something. It's a long time. So obviously they'll be wanting to get back on the horse against Watford. But, I mean, just looking slightly wider view, we're obviously 3 points behind Chelsea, but we are 3 ahead of Liverpool, 4 ahead of City, a lovely 7 ahead of Spurs now, and 10 ahead of Man United. Watford up into 7th, I hadn't realised, which is interesting to see. So that won't be a rollover for City, you'd assume. But again, we're coming into this busy Christmas period. Obviously, after these games, we then got West Brom and Palace just before and just after Christmas. You're happy with this position as we stand at the moment?
Definitely. Consolidated sort of after a run of dodgy performances maybe in November. I think we've started this month sort of how we've played in the early months of the season. A lot better. I feel a lot more confident about how we're playing, and we sort of in the process of consolidating ourselves in second in the league. I think Chelsea obviously looking really strong. They've got some very winnable fixtures coming up next. So I think these next 2 games is sort of a case of just staying in touch, because then over Christmas it's our turn to have some winnable fixtures. But coming into the Christmas period, I don't think we can be too unhappy at all.
No. So I'm just going to, no, I shouldn't really have said, I suppose I didn't answer that in the best way, because I'm certainly very happy. Is this what we expected, I suppose, is what I meant. And I'm not sure it is. I think it's perhaps a little better than I expected, which is great.
Yeah, up to the first day of the season.
Yes,
I'd been happy being in the top half at Christmas.
yes. I mean, to be 7 points ahead of Spurs, I think. I mean, I'm not picking on Spurs particularly, although we could do. But as a rough benchmark of last year, for example, I think that's because obviously we were never that far ahead of Spurs, or certainly not by the business end of things, although we did sneak past them in the end, of course. To be that far ahead of them, to be that 10 points ahead of United. I mean, I know they've got, if you like, structural issues they're trying to sort out, but I don't really care. I'll take the 10 points ahead of them. I mean, although on the other hand, I didn't see us being 3 behind Chelsea the way when we played against them a few weeks ago. So, but yeah, second place, 3 off the lead with some winnable games ish coming up. I mean, the West Brom game is actually Boxing Day. Palace is New Year's Day. Both of those are home games. Then we have to go to Bournemouth in the league and Swansea in the league, with a cup game thrown in the middle of those at Preston. Burnley at home, and then Watford at home on the last day of January. Those period of games, with apart from the 2 that we've mentioned for this week, we should be looking at quite a lot of points out of that lot.
Yeah, come the end of January, there's not really going to be much of an excuse if we're not, if not right at the top, still well in the mix. We know February and March is where we struggle. So it's so important, I think, to get into February in a really strong position. It's just so we have that belief that we can push on. Because if we stumble our way through those easier games, then I think psychologically it's going to be hard to see us pushing on.
Yep, I think that's it's a long way ahead, but if we can get a few more wins together now, and they're playing brilliantly at the moment. When it's clicking, it's looking very good, and there does seem to be this confidence. Going behind doesn't seem to be quite as dispiriting, for want of a better word, as it may have been in the past. Yeah. So it's looking good. All right then. Well, that's been a bit of a bumper one, but there was lots to talk about. Generally, all very good again, which is nice. We can't do much about drawing Bayern Munich, but there we are. We can we can worry about that later in the in 2017. All right. Well, we will try and keep this regular over Christmas, so sort of Mondays, I assume, up into the new year. So we will be back for that. So for the moment, Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we will be back next week to discuss Everton and the Man City games, and we'll speak to you then. Take care. See you later. Bye bye.